am a civilian in the military. I work at the child development centers on base for military kids and families. And last week, like when there was like the shutdown possibly happening, I was going to call in about that. There's also just like a lot of like issues going on in politics with childcare and all that kind of stuff. And It's just like, I'm at the cross section of like a lot of that. And it's crazy. Like I would have had to gone into work and not get paid. Obviously I would have gotten back pay. But it's just like, I don't know. I just wanted to kind of like hear your guys' thoughts on like the cross section of that. Like defense spending is like crazy and I do not get paid nearly enough for what I do. There's tons of bases in San Diego, like just so many. So also, I don't know, like California rent in general, but specifically San Diego is crazy. So like I have to pay rent if I want to like work, you know, in childcare on the bases and stuff. I get like military benefits to a certain extent. So it's a good job, but then I have to pay for rent in San Diego. I'm like just overworked, you know, with the, you know, how childcare is, and even people in the military can't afford it barely. What, like, you know, it's so essential. I would have had to gone in and not get paid during the shutdown.
Right. People don't understand that. Like what happens is you get from, I don't know where, you know, who sends it to you. Now, the military, it's maybe a slightly different situation, but you get an assessment once the bureaucracy realizes like there could be a shutdown as to whether, you know, what, and I don't know what the classifications are, but essential is one of them, where it means that you're going to be, or you could be furloughed. You could be deemed essential, which means you come in and you get paid later. There's all sorts of different like classifications. It's so complicated, and you'd have to come in and work, have your pay deferred. And I'm sure your landlord, if you called your landlord and said, hey, I'm not going to be able to pay you this month because I'm not getting paid until it could be 2 weeks, it could be 6 months. I'm sure your landlord will be like, oh, okay, no problem. Don't worry about it.
I also had issues even finding an apartment because when they see my paychecks are from the Department of Defense and I'm technically, you know, like in the military as a civilian, they're like, oh, like, are you going to have a chance of being deployed? Like, what if you have to leave however many months? And I'm like, no, like, I'm just a civilian. I don't get deployed or anything. But even then they're sketched out. They're like, well, we don't want you to like have to break your lease. There's just like, it's weird, the kind of like middle that I'm in with like defense spending and childcare. I didn't realize that this was a thing. This kind of childcare was a thing until I got this job, or you're like in the military. But it's definitely like an interesting like cross section of politics right now, like what we're kind of as a country like trying to figure out and deal with.
And we should also say there's about 70,000 childcare entities, I think, is it around the country that are losing funding, that have just lost funding in the past month. Because the aid from the American Rescue Plan ended. And it's just...
Per Politico, nearly $24 billion in federal aid for daycare centers and preschools is slated to run out September 30th. So last on Saturday, but per Politico, a piece from August.
So a lot of daycares are probably closing down, and or a lot of parents are having to go into Hawk. I don't know how people are dealing with it. It's a nightmare.
It really is, and like I'm on my break right now actually, but I'm gonna go in a sec. But yeah, I mean, this specific childcare is extremely cheap compared to what people pay off base outside the military. It's like, you know, I know people spending like $4,000 on childcare a month. And, within the military, it's a lot cheaper, but it's still like we're still overworked, underpaid. Supplies, everything like that is still like just like any other child care.
Right.
So it's good for military families that they have this option. I'm really happy to be a part of military children really do need that. There's a lot of like deployments, PTSD, all that kind of stuff that they deserve to have good child care, but also teachers deserve to, be paid well, and every child deserves to have adequate.
And there's a ton of money to go around.
I would say that there's that every child, period, in every family should have that type of child care.
Totally.
And it's amazing to me when we go backwards like this, and and there's no sort of like real cry about it, at least that we can hear. Appreciate the call, Hannah.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.